Marine reacts to Warhammer 40K's Dark Angels Part 2 by Baldermort's Guide to Warhammer. As always, I'm going to be leaving a link to the original video channel down in the description below, so go ahead and make sure that you check them out. Now, real quick, just a little recap of what happened in the Part 1. It was mainly focused on two separate pieces. Now, the first one really being the part where it kind of introduces the story aspect when the captain is talking to the Inquisitor. Figured out that the Inquisitor is very cocky, and apparently from the comments that I've seen but haven't yet responded to, which I do intend to do here pretty soon after this video, was that it's because of the amount of power that they hold and that they're very just cocky all the way around. Now, on top of that, I'm not sure if that also includes to the with the Grey Knights, because they're a part of the Inquisition as well, correct? They're just their form or version of the Space Marine. So I mean, I would assume they're not like that, just because like all the training that they go through and that whole mind, mental fortitude training. Because I believe at one point it was mentioned in the Grey Knight video that they get mind wiped, so that there's certain things and emotions that can be used against them. But also that, according to the comments as well, and it's kind of what they said on here when the Inquisitor was showing the captain the Fallen, which it's pretty obvious to think that it's just referring to Dark Angels who were corrupted, and that the Dark Angels, from what I've been seeing from the comments, I don't know how true this is, but that they'll drop a lot of things just to go chase one, because I mean, I'm assuming to them it's like considered insanely great shame, and obviously it could put a lot of distrust in how they get viewed by everyday civilians. Now, when they actually went and made landfall to the planet that they were going to, they ended up talking to not talking to. They ended up going to this stronghold that had fallen at it, and then at the very end, you see that there was a warlord of chaos, and they ended up seeing like he was right next to a fallen, and then I believe the captain ended up taking him out, and then apparently with the whole fallen thing as well, from what I've been seeing, that it had a deal during the Horus Heresy. I mean. And that apparently there's like a lot of backstabbing, a lot of secrets going on, a lot of miscommunication, which just caused a giant cluster F, which, by the way, I realize I shouldn't be cursing too much, as far as YouTube doesn't like that very much, so long as I don't do it frequently. And also, they went into the lore a little bit, or just like a little bit about the Dark Angels themselves, before we ended that first part. And the biggest thing that had really stuck out to me, and it was very evident within part 1, was that the whole jack of all trades. Now, someone said that the Ultramarines are more considered the jack of all trades, masters of none, and that the Dark Angels are considered the masters, the jack of all trades and the masters of all. I don't know if that's maybe pushing it. I'm not 100% sure, but I could definitely see that that could be the case, depending on just from what they've said so far. So I don't know, though. We'll probably see more in this video to see if that's the case, or if they even mention it again. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. But before we do, don't forget to like, subscribe, if it does help me a lot. Hit that notification bell right there, so you get notified every time I do upload. Sometimes I'm uploading twice a day, typically working on them whenever I can, and then releasing them early the next day. That way when you all wake up, you're fresh in a video first thing in the morning. So, let's go ahead and see what Baldermort's Dark Angels Part 2 has in store for us.
But this is not only due to their well-rounded attributes. No. There is something that many choose to ignore of late. The limelight being firmly fixed on the one person and their legion. I will not mention here, but it has drawn the truth away from its rightful place. Lion L. Johnson, the Lord and Primarch of the Dark Angels, was a natural...
I believe he's about to say natural born leadership, because a lot of that has been coming in the comments as well as part 1. I kept on seeing line and line, and then eventually I saw someone mention Primarch, and I was like, oh, okay. Then that makes a lot of sense, especially now seeing this. And apparently there was like a lot of leadership type qualities, and the fact that the Space Marines, or at least the Dark Angels, would be descendant of the actual Primarch. I'm assuming any type of skills he's got or anything he had, I was like, with the other Space Marine chapters, gets passed down along the line.
Genius at combat and at tactics. His ability was not that of the hard grafters, who have to prepare the right ground, overwhelming numbers, tricks and traps to win. For there are a plethora of Pompeys amongst the ranks of the Primarchs, each one a terror on the battlefield, but also a horror to face as a general. But here, in the Primarch of the First Legion, Lion L. Johnson, was a Gaius Julius Caesar, an Alexander, a natural. The Lion needed only to flick an eye across an unfolding battle map to see where his enemy was weak and where its strength actually was, no matter their attempt to obfuscate. As with all of the Primarchs and their sons, their Space Marines, the Dark Angels have inherited this astonishing ability. They take to a battlefield like a duck to water. Yes, they are trained with vigor and discipline, but it is their natural affinity for war that is perhaps their most profound attribute. As such, many a lore master or player, writer of Black Library or store owner will forget who they are. They are the first. They are untouchable, and would carve through all but one of the loyalist legions like a hot knife through butter.
I'm telling you, man, every single video, this guy can really hype you up on any Space Marine chapter, or in this case, Legion at this point. In any case, he really gets, it's just something, the way he presents it, really gets me hyped.
It is often stated, numbers do not win a battle. As such, I must make my point clear. Despite not having this army and having no natural requirement or drive to laud them so highly, they are the force that actually keeps the Imperium together. Well, the Space Marines. They are the Legion, chapter or force that should be the most awaited and the most appreciated when they do attend a field of conflict, an arena of war. For any who would question this valuation, for I hope there are many, discussion is such an important part of this hobby, I would remind you of only one detail. A secret shrouded in the darkest periods of the Great Crusade, a conflict so terrible and costly that its memory has been struck from all imperial records by the direction of the Emperor himself. The conflict is shrouded in darkness, but it is guessed that it may have taken the two lost legions, either just their Primarch or their legion entire.
So I've been hearing that a lot as well. As people keep, so originally there's supposed to be 20, correct? But that there's only 18 because two of them, I haven't figured out what happened to them. It's just that even that the Emperor had apparently struck in their name for the record, like they never existed. And I really didn't know. And he kind of mentioned it right here that it seemed unknown as far as it's just the Primarchs that are gone, or if it's the entire Legion. And I mean, is there any clue as to what may have happened to them? Or is it just like kind of that's how it was written, just to leave like a little bit of mysteriousness, and then maybe later on expand upon that down in the future?
The Rang-Dang Xenocides. A war so terrible that it was mentioned to be almost comparable to the Horus Heresy. So hotly contested and so bitter was it. All that is known for certain is one thing. The war ended when the mighty First Legion was sent to destroy the Rang-Dan in the Third Xenocide. They lost over 50,000 Marines, thus losing their status as the most numerous Legion, but they won. They wiped the Rang-Dan off the face of the galaxy. Compared to this, no other Legion can come even close, bar perhaps, just perhaps, the Lunar Wolves before they fell. Or maybe the Imperial Fists in the defense of the Imperium during the heresy. Thus are the Dark Angels a mighty army, and one that is proud. Thus it was always to be vulnerable to that which happened later. The betrayal of its second brightest light, the right-hand man and best friend of the Primarch Lionel Johnson, Luther. We cannot go into all of that tale today, for this is only an introduction, but let us now pull back the curtain and gaze at the thing that the Dark Angels hide from all. We will now lean on existing wisdom for the events that scarred this Legion, its subsequent chapters, and every Marine who has ever worn the green since that day. A secret that has been held for over 10,000 years. The Fall of Caliban. In the aftermath of the Horus Heresy, the surviving loyalists rallied the reeling Imperium. The Dark Angels took a significant part in these battles, which later came to be called the Scouring. As they pursued the rebels, the line diverted to nearby Caliban, which had been enshrouded by warp storms since Horus's betrayal. For Lionel Johnson, one final act of treachery remained to be discovered. As the Dark Angels' fleet moved into orbit, they were met by a barrage of defense laser fire. Ships exploded, plummeting into the planet like monstrous comets. Although stunned by the sudden attack, Johnson's superhuman reactions allowed what remained of the fleet to disengage, withdrawing to safety. The betrayal Johnson unraveled shook him to his very core. Over the decades, Luther had brooded, nurturing a seed of jealousy. His hatred had spread, poisoning those under his command and several generations of new recruits. His powerful oratory had twisted their hearts with an all-consuming hatred of the new Imperium.
So this is where that backstabbing is coming into play now during the Horus Heresy. So it was true. I wonder where that miscommunication is going to come in, or unless that would have came in when it started to infect when he was saying the newer generations of the Dark Angels.
Like Horus, Luther had been corrupted. His pride had been all the opening the Dark Gods needed to make him their own. The fury of Lionel Johnson and the remaining loyal Dark Angels knew no bounds. They had fought across the galaxy, but had arrived too late to aid their Emperor. Still, they had thought the Dark Powers routed, only to find their own home world, their own brethren corrupted and turned against them. Even as the horrors of the situation sunk in, Johnson formulated a battle plan. It began with the massed guns of the fleet disabling Caliban's defense laser batteries and driving the rebel Dark Angels into the shelter of their force field-protected fortress monasteries. Knowing that one surgical strike could end the conflict, Lionel Johnson personally led an assault on the greatest monastery of the Old Order. He knew that this was where he would find Luther, and so it was that the two former friends faced each other. Although the Primarch possessed immense power, the two opponents were equally matched, for Luther's abilities were enhanced by vast forces gifted to him by the Dark Gods of Chaos.
I was wondering that too. I thought Lionel Johnson was going to just completely demolish him, but then obviously since he's corrupted, he's going to be buffed up a little bit to the point that they're actually on par. Now, on top of this, now I know that it'd be very like traumatic, very just painful, I guess, to your core to see someone who you consider like your best friend, possibly even brothers, to the point that they ended up betraying you, right? Now, due to corruption, his thing being jealousy and being pride, is it possible that when someone is corrupted, or is there any instances where somebody was corrupted and then somehow managed to pull away from that and become uncorrupted, I guess? Or is it just as soon as you're corrupted, that's it, you're done, you belong to the Chaos Gods? Or is it possible to come back from that? Because, I mean, I would assume that there wouldn't be, but you never know. I mean, there's probably an instance that it may or may not have happened, but just kind of something that I was thinking as soon as I was hearing this.
What followed was a fight of titanic proportions. As the two adversaries traded blows, shockwaves shook the monastery, causing chunks of masonry to crash down around them. Outside, the guns of the Dark Angels fleet pounded the planet, reducing the other monasteries to miles-wide craters. Angry magma spewing from the wounds gouged into the planet's crust. Caliban's surface began to crack under the bombardment, and the fury of the Dark Angels blinded them to the devastation they were wreaking. As the planet broke apart, the battle between Johnson and Luther reached its climax. Already weakened by the long fight, Luther staggered, leaving an opening, but despite his rage, Lionel Johnson could not bring himself to slay his former friend. As he hesitated, Luther unleashed a furious psychic attack that knocked Johnson to his knees and left him mortally wounded. As the dying Primarch struggled to stand, a veil was lifted from Luther's eyes and he realized the full extent of his deeds. His was a triple betrayal, of his friend, of the Dark Angels, and of the Emperor. The truth shattered his sanity, and he slumped down beside the ailing Johnson, issuing a cry of pain and despair that echoed through the warp. Upon hearing that sound, the Chaos Gods realized that, once more, they had been denied.
Okay, so, I mean, I don't know if he's completely uncorrupted, but maybe his mind just shattered to the point where he couldn't, I guess, like, his mind just broke, which means that the Chaos Gods, at the very least, have lost their kind of grip on him, or at the very least, it has loosened. And when they said that, again, they had been denied, referring back to when people were telling me about how the Emperor, that's how secretly he had gotten his capabilities, was that he had made some deal with the Chaos Gods, and then he ended up essentially saying, like, F you, and then that's why they were so pissed off, and they were trying so hard to get rid of him, in a sense. So, something like this can happen. I mean, and the main reason behind this is because usually you see in the movies, right, that the main character always had a best friend, that they turned evil, and that all of a sudden when it comes down to it, either the good guy ends up not being able to finish him, and then that's when the bad guy gets the upper hand. But then it's always one of those instances where it's either the bad guy's going to stay bad until the end, and then the good guy kills him, and then all of a sudden you feel like a remorse, but it's like, hey, he's dead now, you know, things are done. Or it turns out that the bad guy ends up saving or changing his mind at the very last second, and then maybe the good guy and the bad guy kind of become friends again. But then obviously, like in most movies, the bad guy ends up dying, and then it's very sad. I don't know which way this is going to go, but considering it is the Warhammer 40K universe, probably not the best of endings.
Howled in frustration, and across the galaxy, psychers fell to their knees. So powerful was the cry that a rent appeared in the fabric of space, and a warp storm emerged to engulf what remained of Caliban. Those fallen Dark Angels who had served under Luther were sucked from the broken surface into the warp and cast throughout time and space. The remains of Caliban, weakened by the bombardment, were ripped asunder, destroyed in a last apocalyptic explosion. Only a single part of the planet survived the vortex that pulled the rest of the crumbling debris into the warp. Protected by an ancient force field, the ruins of the fortress monastery and a massive chunk of the planet's bedrock still remained, held together and floating alone in the empty vacuum of space. The Dark Angels flew down to the surface of the remaining rock and gazed in horror at what was left of their once verdant homeworld. At the heart of the empty wasteland they found Luther, bloody, cringing, and gibbering. But they were unable to extract anything coherent out of the shell of a man who had once been Johnson's closest friend. Luther repeated the same words over and over again. The Primarch had been carried away by the Watchers in the dark, and one day he would return to forgive Luther for the terrible sins he had committed.
Like the Watchers of the Dark? If someone could let me know down that in the comments below, because I think Watcher and I think of Dark, I think of like chaos or like things that are like evil, and that someday he'll return to forgive Luther.
Lionel Johnson, there was no sign of the rock. In the days that followed, the Dark Angels made the rock their new home. They explored the vast halls and dungeons beneath the fortress monastery, claiming the hordes of weapons and machinery that had lain there since the age of technology. A great labor was begun, carving out deeper catacombs into the bedrock, excavating room for an entire legion. With the aid of tech priests of Mars, docks were added to house spacecraft. After centuries of work, warp engines were outfitted as well, allowing the rock to traverse the galaxy. For all its capabilities, the rock remains a gloomy sight. Chains of lightning arcing across its craggy features, its force fields rent with cracks. The fortress monastery of the Dark Angels is as indelibly marked by Caliban's destruction as its inhabitants. The hunt for the Fallen. The Fallen's continued existence is anathema to the Dark Angels, a persistent stain on their honor. That those who turned upon the Lion and caused his demise are still alive is an affront to the Space Marines that were made in his image. For the unforgiven to be redeemed, their traitorous brothers must be hunted down and made to repent. As the decades since the fall of Caliban turned to centuries, the inner circle took shape. It grew from an ad hoc conclave to a formal, if still furtive, organization that spread through not just the Dark Angels, but their successor chapters as well. With no home world save the Rock, recruitment planets were founded, and new generations of Dark Angels were added to replace those lost in battle. The regiments and drills of the chapter were strict, with special emphasis on brotherhood and loyalty. Ideals passed directly on to their successor chapters as well. However, the Masters and Elder Warriors who led the instruction told the neophytes nothing of the sin of their forefathers. By the halfway point of the 32nd millennium, only a few interred within the sarcophagi of dreadnoughts were left of those that survived the Battle of Caliban.
So the part about he said about the neophytes and not telling them kind of like the dark stain in their history, do you all think that that's a good idea or a bad idea? Is it something that they should forget like it completely happened? Or is it something that they should tell them what would happen if any one of them were to do that? I mean, I guess so they could know the consequences of it, but it's like, I can kind of see it either way.
The truth of what occurred and knowledge of the fallen became secret. Secrets carried only by the small number of inner circle brethren within each unforgiven chapter. As veterans rise through the unseen levels of trust, more of the truth is gradually revealed to them by ranking members of the inner circle. Only then will they realize that in the millennia since the fall of Caliban, the Sons of the Lion have been fulfilling their duties to the Emperor, while at the same time carrying out a hidden agenda, scouring the galaxy for signs of the corrupted kin. Whether operating alone or in small bands, each of the Fallen that found their own ways of surviving the millennia since Luther's betrayal. A great many have embraced the power of the Dark Gods, becoming true heretic Astartes, and in the wake of the Great Rift, some of these have even ascended to demonhood. Others have survived as leaders of small piratical or cultist corps, or have been discovered attempting to live a nomadic existence on the fringes of the Imperium. A notable few have risen to be tyrants of entire planetary empires, with multiple worlds at their command.
Does everybody know? Obviously, going back to that part where I said about if they get corrupted, is it possible for them to come back from it, like become uncorrupted, or does that kind of happen, like kind of like what it seemed when it happened with Luther, where his mind just broke completely, and then that was it? Or is there any instances where those who were corrupted by chaos ended up maybe regretting it, but they didn't lose their mind, and they're just kind of like now at this point just trying to stay out of people's way?
As time means nothing in the warp, sometimes a Fallen appears upon a world having just, to his frame of reference, been plucked from the disintegrating surface of Caliban. The thousands of intervening years have passed are, to him, just a blinking of an eye within the abyss of insanity that is the warp. Usually driven wild with rage, such individuals launch themselves upon the hapless servants of the Imperium, a terrible force of vengeance, and raving aloud those secrets their inner circle have worked so long to keep silent. There are those among the Fallen who regret their betrayal of their Primarch. Unable to reconcile themselves with their former order, they lead a forlorn, hunted existence. Many become mercenaries or rogue traders, roaming the edges of the galaxy as masterless men. Some attempt to atone for their sins, integrating themselves into human societies to work towards a noble cause.
Well, just answer my question. There are those who regret doing that, and that, they're trying to do good, but I feel like even though, no matter how much good they would do or try to do, I don't think it would end well for them if they encounter Dark Angels again.
The Dark Angels often go for years, even decades, without finding any rumors or clues as to the whereabouts of one of the Fallen. When traces of the Fallen are detected, the Ravenwing and Deathwing are deployed. While both companies have gained fame for their many triumphs against the Imperium's enemies, it is for the Unforgiven's nefarious task that they are truly trained and equipped. The Ravenwing are the ultimate hunters and scouts, harrying their quarry into a position of vulnerability before their brothers in the Deathwing arrive, the mailed fist brought swiftly down to inflict the killing blow. Any captured Fallen are taken back to the Rock. Deep inside its dungeons, interrogator chaplains inflict terrible excruciation in order to force their disgraced kin to repent. Occasionally they do, and for their pains, they die quickly. More often than not, however, The captured fallen refuses, and suffers a long, drawn-out and agonizing death at the hands of those who would save his soul. Many of these defiant traitors meet their ends with curses upon their lips, knowing their corrupted souls will find a different kind of salvation in the warp, while others simply accept it as the price they pay for cleaving to the beliefs that led them to betray their brothers in the first place. The Raven Wing. Black-clad huntsmen and masters of the art of lightning warfare, the Raven Wing race before their chapter like thunder before a storm. Prizing speed and mobility above all else, they are an integral part of the Dark Angel's battlefield strategies, as well as a powerful asset in the Unforgiven's secret quest. Engines roaring, the Raven Wing tear forward, dodging enemy fire while moving at breakneck speed. These are the warriors of the Dark Angel's second company, a highly specialized formation that fights from fast-moving attack vehicles. They are assembled from the finest riders and pilots in the chapter, and their skills are further honed upon induction. Though the true purpose of their specialist training remains unknown by the wider Imperium, they have become renowned for their skill at mobile warfare. The majority of the Raven Wing fight from the saddle as Space Marine bikes, supported by brothers piloting various marks of land speeder or atmospheric assault fighters. The Raven Wing are ideal for fast assault missions, and elements of their company can often be found acting as an outrider reconnaissance force for larger Dark Angel's armies. Their far-ranging land speeders search for the telltale signs of the foe, voxing back information on enemy movements and dispositions. When the moment is right, the Raven Wing gun their engines and roar into the fight, a hurtling gale of black armor, blazing guns, and roaring chainswords that sweep aside any and all resistance. With but a word, the Raven Wing can switch between a variety of perfectly drilled attack patterns in order to encircle, flank, break apart, or otherwise harass their foes.
Alright, so real quick. So it seems like there's a little, this might be me just being dumb again or not remembering things clearly, but so they have little subgroups, correct, within the Dark Angels. All right, so real quick, as far as like comparing this to today, for example, take the Marine Corps. I was in 3-7, right, and I was with India, so we dealt with desert environments, right? That was kind of our specialty. But now take Marines from, say, a unit in Camp Pendleton, and they would go to a different type of environment. So same branch, different groups, going to different and having different locations and having different what do you want to call it? Specialties in a sense, right?
At all times they strive to avoid becoming bogged down, swiftly dissecting even the largest enemy force with their hit-and-run attacks. Overhead, Nephilim jet fighters and Dark Talons keep their skies clear of enemy craft, while land speeders dart into position to unload their impressive firepower. Should an especially dangerous or vital target present itself, the Raven Wing mounts teleport homers upon their bikes that allow them to summon the warriors of the Death Wing to the battlefield. Not only does the arrival of their Terminator-armored brethren all but guarantee victory, it also gives a clue to the true, veiled purpose of the Raven Wing, one that is altogether more sinister in nature. Known only to the Grand Master and to the carefully selected inner circle members of the Black Knight's elite, that the Raven Wing are tasked with hunting down and running to ground are fallen Dark Angels. The nature of those they track is why every member of the Raven Wing must be not only an expert rider or pilot, but must also fervently be dedicated to his chapter. More than any other force, the brothers of the Raven Wing are likely to be exposed to the pernicious lies of the fallen. They must therefore be unquestioning in their faith and are monitored closely at all times by their chaplain to ensure no chinks appear in their armor of indoctrination. The Death Wing. Renowned as one of the finest fighting forces in the Imperium, the Death Wing are their chapter's mailed fist. No foe is too great for them to subdue, and no mission is too difficult or dangerous for them to complete. Their reputation is such that the mere sight of their bone-white armor is enough to put many foes to flight. The Death Wing are the Dark Angel's first company. Unlike the elite battle brothers of most Space Marine chapters, they fight clad exclusively in ancient suits of Terminator armor, each a nigh impenetrable relic from a bygone age. That the Dark Angels can equip all of their veterans this way.
This is from the Deathwing Hulk, or Hulk Deathwing. The next game that I'll be playing here after the Space Marine 40,000 one with the Ultramarines. It looks really cool.
It speaks volumes of the wealth of relics hidden within the rock, and also an indication of how seriously the chapter takes the Deathwing's true mission, to ruthlessly eliminate the fallen. The hammer of the inner circle, the Deathwing is an assault force capable of teleporting straight into the midst of battle, ripping the heart out of the enemy with a well-placed strike, while withstanding tremendous amounts of return fire. Only Dark Angels have shown incredible skills at arms, and total loyalty to their chapter can undergo the exacting rites of initiation required to join the Deathwing. Those who survive the mental, physical, and spiritual rigors of this ritual take their place among the ranks of their chapter's elite. Upon a Dark Angel's ascension to the Deathwing, the truth of what occurred on Caliban in the wake of the heresy will gradually be imparted to them by ranking members of the inner circle. As they learn more and more of the tragic events, the warriors' feelings of shame and contempt for their fallen brothers grow, and the more of themselves they give over to the tireless quest for vengeance and absolution. In battle, this knowledge makes the Deathwing beacons of righteous fury, leading their brothers to mercilessly destroy any who would oppose them. Every warrior of the company is utterly devoted, following the commands of their superiors without question, and willingly performing any act in the name of the hunt. For this reason, very few Dark Angels strike forces go to war without at least one squad of Deathwing on hand, prepared to carry out those orders from chapter command that battle brothers outside of the inner circle would find abhorrent. Those who enter the Deathwing may suppose they have learned all there is to know of the Dark Angel's shadowed past, but they have merely entered the first ring of the clandestine organization known as the Inner Circle. There remain circles within circles, and the veterans of the company have learned still more of their history. These warriors are given the title of Deathwing Knights, and their noble fury in battle and dedication to the chapter is the stuff of legend.
So real quick, as far as when the Horus Heresy was going on and everybody was like, or half of them were becoming traitors, correct? Now, from what I've seen and heard is that it seems like when one chapter would turn traitor, the entire chapter would turn traitor, but they would also kill the ones that were trying to remain loyal, correct? So, because I believe it was in the, God, I can't remember the name off the top of my head. Loken. I wanted to say Luther again for some reason, but Loken, right? He was one of the few that didn't end up turning traitor, if I remember correctly. It's been a little while, and it seems like the Dark Age is the only one where it was kind of maybe split down the middle more as far as when the traitor-ness was going on. And with the other ones, again, it seemed like the ones who were loyal, they took them out. And then, so it really seemed like the whole chapter just immediately went, bam, traitors, right? But this is the only one where they actually had enough ones who were still loyal to be able to not only repel or technically I don't think they really repelled the attack at first. I believe it was that Johnson had them retreat because they were kind of caught off guard. But they're now still actively pursuing those who have become traitors.
We know the history of this glorious chapter and legion. We know their secret, and how they deal with it. Why it is so important to them, and how they view safeguarding their secret as actually protecting the morale and very fiber of the Imperium entire. We know that the Dark Angels have now realized that the Primaris Marines are not the stooges that they suspected, as one of the Inner Circle has now crossed the Rubicon Primaris, has become a Primaris Space Marine. Now we come to my favorite part. We go off script. For I have little to say that has not already been said. but it does require to be said. As per the bunker meme, all other Loyalist players who cannot handle some raw truths, please leave now. Now that we are alone. How dare they? One tract in one goddamn book spewed from the vile maw of a known traitor has been used to vilify, castigate and deride the Dark Angels, the first, for decades. And I am sick of it. Sick of the lazy memes, the taunts, the unbelievably obtuse and tedious vectors used to deride the Dark Angels. All done at the instigation of those chapter players who cannot handle the unabridged and very simple truth. Only one other legion have even a hope of stopping a Dark Angel army when they march to war. The Volca Fenrica. Because they were designed to kill Marines, but in any other situation, the Dark Angels win out. Against any enemy that is not a Marine, the Space Wolves also fail in their test. And the Dark Angels have harboured their strength, have hoarded their archaeotech and weaponry. They have always really remained a legion, all in preparation for the return of the Lion. Oh, but there are those who fear the waking of this mighty son of the Emperor. It was a known fact that all of the other Primarchs felt an unnatural fear when they were in his presence, for very good reason. He is the first, he is the template, he is the original Primarch. If the Lion had been found first and the role of War Master was not so much overstuffed diplomat as it was strategist, then the choice would have been clear. And one can imagine that there is one Primarch the Chaos Lords fear. Yes, Russ may be able to best even a demonic Primarch, maybe. But it is the Lion that they must secretly quail over returning, because he is the perfect weapon against chaos. Where Gulliman or Dawn would try to organise and gain control of a battlefield, a pointless exercise in the face of warp rifts and the powers of the Chaos Gods, it is the Lion who would not need to bother. He would be able to react to their thrusts, strange summonations and effects without batting an eyelid. So it may be the Lion who is the greatest fear of the Lords of Chaos. Reboot does what he can, to the best of his abilities, but if the Lion were to return, then we would see some heads crack open very swiftly indeed. But Reboot must also secretly fear the return of his antisocial and intimidating big brother, Johnson, for if the Lion were to deem him unfit to rule, and then challenge him, then not all of the forces of Ultramar, not all of the accumulated numerical superiority of the Ultramarines, or the vaunted powers of the Arch-Organizer would be able to prevent the Lion from taking what he wanted, even if it be the place as the guardian of the throne. Let us hope, for the Imperium and all of humanity, that when the Lion wakes, his detractors know what is best for them, and they direct him at the forces of chaos, the Tyranid and the Necron. For in all of the galaxy, he is the only general who may be able to even challenge Imhotep. The only one. We know he will arise soon. Let us hope that this Lion does not awake hungry.
Alright, let's go ahead and talk about that for a minute. So as far as that secret goes, and the secret of obviously the Fallen, in that they keep that very secretive to the point that only like top people know, and then when people start eventually getting up in that level of the chain of command, that's when they slowly start to like kind of tell the truth to them, which in turn makes them incredibly vengeful and want to go chase the Fallen, right? So is this something that is so secret to the point that does the Emperor know about this? Because as far as I know, he doesn't, right? Now, as far as with the actual Primarch Johnson, when they mentioned that he was taken away by the Watch of the Black, or the Black Watch, or something, and that he's so that it's supposed to be that he's gonna come back eventually, and that's what the Dark Angels are waiting on. Now, from what it kept on going at the end, where at the end, he kind of gave me chills the way he was talking. Was that if he came back, he seems to be like literally the top dog. I mean, obviously, I don't know if this is just because of the way he's portrayed, but it seems like to me like he would be, in a sense, the one who would take over after the Emperor instead of, what's his name, Gilliman? In any case, because then he also mentioned the Ultramarines as well, and that nobody really could stop him, and that if he does come back, does anyone have an idea as to where he has been specifically, what he's doing? Do you think maybe he would even want that? I mean, I have no idea. It would definitely have to be a video in which it looks further deeper into his background. So other than that, I have one little theory, right? Now, the way that they were mentioning them, right? Obviously, I don't know at this point if they still have more numbers than all the other chapters, or 10. I mean, because I keep thinking Dark Angels, and since they were the first ones, I keep thinking Legion, right? So, with that being the case, is this a possible sign that some maybe time in the future that if Johnson does come back, do you think there might be a civil war, or do you think that the Dark Angels would bear mind this theory that they would try to reshape, I guess, the Empire and like man in their own image, because that's kind of the vibe I was getting at the end, right? Because saying that nobody can technically stop them, and that he also said that they better hope that he doesn't wake up hungry. So there's just a lot of me thinking like, it seems like this dude really wants to be in charge, or seems like the Legion itself wants to be the main, guess, like, I don't know, like the main Legion, or like the main people, and considering that they were the first. Now, obviously, that's just probably me far-reaching, but that's just something that popped in my head at the very end there. Now, if you made it this far, here's a little snippet about myself, which, in case this is your first time seeing me do this, this is just the part where maybe talk about a video update or a channel update, even if it's small, just something to kind of look at, but mainly me just telling like either something about myself, a little story, military related, just my personal life. So one time when I was on duty in the Marine Corps, now if you've been on duty, you know some crazy shit's gonna happen, especially if it's the weekend. I ended up, it was damn fucking what, like 8 p.m. right? We had just done our little transition, and I was a senior at the time, and we had done our little transition where I was part of my A duty, which is funny because I was a Lance Corporal at the time, and they only wanted corporals to be the duty NCO. But you know, when you don't have enough NCOs, you know, you make do. In any case, it was a buddy of mine, and then he was just coming back on, and then we were doing like, I was giving him the little information like, hey, nothing's going on, you know, I'm gonna go chill in the room for about 2 hours, and then by that time it'll be our rest cycle, and then we'll take our own hours, right? So as soon as I'm about to fucking walk out of the fucking little duty hut, there's my second curse word, is that I see a dumpster get lit on fire. Now, I know turning on pauses can be very boring at times, but you got Marines setting things on fire, Marines fighting in the laundry rooms, you got Marines pulling the fucking fire alarm, third curse word, all in one night on a weekend because they're bored. Even though a lot of them had cars, they could have gone out, I mean, we're pretty close to Vegas, we were close to Palm Springs, I mean, although Palm Springs there's not much to do either, but there's some things, and we were about the same, a little further, you could have gone to LA and chilled out over there, right? So there's definitely places to go to, although they do require some distance and require you to have a car. But the fact that a lot of this just happened on one weekend, specifically when I was on duty, and it was one of those duties where it was a Saturday morning, so you're not really getting any much of a weekend, because Friday you want to drink, but you got to wake up to go take duty, and then as soon as you get out Sunday morning, you kind of want to drink really hard again. But typically for myself, it was more shit, we got the field in the morning and we're going to be there for an entire week. So pretty much your whole weekend is ruined. And now you got to deal with Marines being a-holes, and you got to write all this down, and you got Marines trying to come up to you, say, hey man, don't write this down, blah blah blah. We're like, dude, you set a garbage can on fire. And I can't not write that down, because they're going to see that in the morning, because at that moment, or at that time, we had First time that for some reason liked hanging around the barracks every now and then. Like he sometimes even came at night. And he was still in uniform, just trying to like say, "Hey, what's up?" You know, kind of like. I mean, I understand he was getting to try to know his guys, but it's like it's a little awkward. Obviously, it's like I'm pretty sure he's gonna walk around and he's gonna see this and be like, "Who was on duty?" And then he was gonna, well, who else is he gonna pull? He's gonna pull me and say, "Hey, so what happened here?" And it's like I'm not gonna lie to him. I'm not gonna lie to him because I know. I'm not trying to get in trouble for something I didn't even have or take a part of, right? And I understand looking after your guys and taking care, make sure they don't do stupid things. And it's like, well, don't do stupid things to begin with, and we don't have to deal with that, right? Or if it's something that's small, you know, then it could easily be swapped underneath. But when the garbage can is made out of metal and it has marks all over it, you know, it's not a whole lot I can do. And then, you know, it was one of those weekends that I just hated, and then Marines are waking up and then they're not remembering what happened the night before, and then it's like, no, just one of those shitty weekends. And there's quite a few of them, but I think that was one of the worst ones because I literally had to stay up also because Marines were still getting drunk like fucking 3 or 4 in the morning. Yeah. And we try to take everything at a low level so it doesn't get any higher, because then everyone starts getting notified. I mean, I've had my moments where I've been really drunk in the Marine Corps. I've woken up in the hospital before. Just because I overdrank, especially when we came back from our second deployment. Obviously, your tolerance is really low because you can't drink over there. But yeah, I mean, in my instance, I didn't do anything necessarily too bad or anything bad at all. Really, I just overshot what I thought I could drink at the time, and I didn't even really get in trouble with it. I had to do some classes. That was about it. And yeah, I mean, for the most part, I made my first sergeant, I made my staff sergeant laugh with what happened and what I was saying. Because I kept on saying, like, yeah, I overshot how much I could drink, and then they always do like a little chuckle. So for them, it was just like, he messed up, you know, he's not a bad guy, he doesn't have anything bad in his record. So I got off of that with just doing some classes, but that's not always the case for most. But yeah, that's just a little story about me. Bad weekend, and we did have to go to the field that very same Monday, early in the morning. We had to be at the armory at like 4 or 5. And then the whole 15 minutes early, and then we ended up not even going until maybe like 8 or 10. So, story for other days. But in any case, that's going to go ahead and do it for this video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, really does help me out a lot. Hit that dislike button if you didn't like it, it helps me for the channel. If you're curious to see what's coming up next, check the description down below. You're going to see a list of about 5 videos. Top to bottom is going to be how I view them. But until then, I'll see you all. I'll see you all in the next video. Bye.